how do we honor our feelings and at the same time look for laughter? Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to another episode of Dr. Mighty Shank. As always, I am so excited to be with you here for another podcast. As you can see, we're doing something a little different if you're watching on video. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about this idea of not letting our feelings get in the way of our fun. And this comes from another lesson from Japan. And I talked a little bit about in my last solo episode how I went on this trip, not only with my son, but with a very, very good friend. And during that time, we had some, as happens when you travel with a friend, with family members, especially for extended periods. We were there for about 9 days. That their conflict can come up, conflicts can occur. And as I shared in the last episode, if you haven't listened to it, I encourage you to go check it out. What we did was we gave each other grace and we were able to allow our feelings, to honor our feelings, to be there, to honor them, but not have them get in the way of our fun. So today I want to dig a little deeper into that because honestly, in the world today, there's a lot of lemons. There's a lot of lemons that are being squeezed, that are being thrown at us. And I was in the conversation with a leader around experiencing joy during this time and giving ourselves permission to experience that joy. So coming back to my trip in Japan, one of the things that I think that myself and my girlfriend and my son, how we did very well is we created lemonade and laughter in the face of our intermittent lemonade moments. And so I think I may have shared with you how many times that we got lost. And a lot of that time it was on the transit system. And there was a lot of times where we were wondering if we were on the right train, going in the right direction. I was intensely focused on the route. And so the times that we did get lost, one could say that there was a lemon there being thrown at us, especially in a country where we didn't really speak the language and we didn't really know the landscape. And so there were a couple of times where we got way off schedule. There were a couple of times where we got way off track. And yet, during those times, we chose, and it was intentionally because there could have been, there was a lot of feelings involved, frustration was involved. And so we could have easily allowed ourselves to succumb to those feelings of frustration and even concern. But instead, what we brought intentionally was the lemonade and the laughter. So the lemonade was like choosing to see the lessons, really seeing the learnings and the benefits of having gotten lost. And I talked a little bit about that in a previous episode of my lessons from Japan, of how we allow the journey, we allow getting lost to be the learn, to be the lesson, and to lead us into the path that we actually needed to go to experience the things that we needed to experience in Japan and the things that quite frankly we wanted to experience, like the people, the kindness, the camaraderie that helped us to get when we were lost to where we needed to be. Right. So that was the lemonade, but also the laughter. Because when you're in a situation where you're really on a timeline, we're trying to get somewhere by a certain time to get to an experience that we're due to get to, and we are just not making it, it would be easy to like be in that frustration and let that embody us. And one of the things that I am a big proponent of is turning those lemons into laughter where it's appropriate. And so that is one of the things that we did very well on our trip, specifically when we were on our way to the city of Kiyosaki, which is a city of onsens, and we hopped a train that was supposed to be an express to take us directly there. And what happened was the train stopped at the at the beginning of a local line, at the end of that line. And we were very confused because we were like, well, we're not at our destination yet. So we got off and we asked the conductor, we're trying to get to this place. We're trying to get to Kinosaki. We thought this was the express train. He said, oh, no, no, no. This ends here. Take the local train. And that was not in the plan. Now, admittedly, we had missed our original time. And so we hopped the next express train. And so what we figured out later was that that train was supposed to change over. And the initial schedule was the one that was a direct schedule to Kinosaki. However, once we did get on the train, I sat with a group of wonderful people who helped us to navigate to the correct train station that would then we could hop back on the express train and get to our destination. So we did very well. We were able to bring the laughter into that and bring the learnings and lessons into that. So why am I talking about all this? Because in this space that we're in, where there's a lot of limits, a lot of harm being done, a lot of suffering, there's just so much chaos in the world around us, city to city, moment to moment, day to day, a lot of political discord and political disappointment. It would be easy for us to allow for those feelings, and rightfully people are feeling angry, people are feeling afraid, and it would be easy to succumb to those emotions. And I'll say that even for myself, when I look at the world, and if I allow myself to really be with it, I get very angry and I get very sad because I feel like, why does it have to be this way? Like, why do we as humans, as a human race, why are we devolving in such a way? And so when I am in that space for a long time, it actually can be debilitating. And I know that I have work to do. I have transformation to provide. I have a purpose in connecting people, reconnecting humanity. And so I can't do that if I'm dysfunctional in my emotions and my feelings. And that's not to say I don't honor them and I don't have things that I do to take care of myself. And I cannot allow myself to become debilitated or else I don't serve my purpose. And so in that space, I have to intentionally find where's the joy, where is the space to be silly, to laugh. And right now, one of the best spaces for me to do that is with my son. You all know I talk about him all the time. And so when I pick him up from school, that is the time that I intentionally engage in play, engage in laughter. And do we have serious conversations? Absolutely. But we carve out a time every day to allow for that joy and allow for that laughter and that love, that expression of what's good and what's going right. And so that's one of the spaces that I cultivated in my home. But I have whole communities in which we cultivated. I cultivated just even in the way I approach watching social media. You know, of course, there's going to be stuff on the timeline that is educating me on what latest headline, what latest chaotic or disappointing thing is going on in the world. And I intentionally sometimes reset the timeline to something that will settle the nervous system, something that will lower my cortisol and make me laugh and make me smile, right? Because we do need to give ourselves permission to feel good, even in the midst of all the things that are going on, because that is the way that we stay functional, to stay on purpose, right? And so this is how we we allow for and honor our feelings, but we don't allow them to get in the way of our fun, of our joy, of our laughter. And in doing that, we can return, we can re-energize and recover and rest so that we can be ready for when it's time to move forward in our purpose in whatever way we're impacting, whether it's in the equity space, whether it's in the communication or the connectedness space, the advocacy space, whether it really is in the therapeutic space, the healing space, whatever space, the educational space. There are all kinds of spaces that we're in. And whatever space that you're in, it's important to lean back and allow ourselves to experience laughter in the midst where it's appropriate. Okay. So that's the thing that I want to bring this week for us to move forward with in our week is how do we honor our feelings and at the same time look for laughter? Honor our feelings, but be intentional about our grabbing for bright spots, looking for bright spots. Honor our feelings, but be intentional about leaning into joy and finding those moments of joy. And I'd love to hear from you. How do you do that? How do you lean into laughter? How do you intentionally bring in that joy and that fun and that play? I think it's so important to carve out time to play. I think it's important to do it every single day. And for sometimes the schedule may not allow that, but we can do it once a week or twice a week. How do you do that? So I invite you to share with me. You can share by reaching out to me directly. If you are an avid listener, you can email me at drmaisha@drmaisha.com. You can also leave a comment on the post. And I look forward to hearing how you infuse intentional play, joy, and laughter in the midst of all that's going on. I'll tell you, I've done a lot of traveling, and especially both in medical mission work and in just traditional tourism, but also in work, in clinical work that I've done. And I remember when I went to other countries I've been to, when I was in residency, I was in Ghana for 3 weeks, and then I went into the mountains of the Dominican Republic the following year to do some medical mission. And then I worked 6 months in New Zealand early in my clinical career. One of the things that I noticed that stood out very much for me was that no matter the circumstances, the level of need for the community that we were serving or providing care for, they always were able to access that sense of joy and that laughter. I remember being in a clinic in Kumasi, and we saw probably about, there's a team of about 4 physicians and a physical therapist and a couple of nurses. So it's about a team of 6 or 8 of us. And we probably saw about 200 patients a day. But one of the things that always stood out to me in every community, we're in Kumasi, we're in Tamale, we're in Takoradi, is that there were always children. And those children were always outside just playing and laughing and dancing and after their school time, right? And we would go out on our breaks and we would just play with them. And it was just so beautiful, like to see them access that play. And the adults would be out there as well, just like engaging in the camaraderie in the community. When we went to the Dominican Republic and we were up in Los Montañas, it was this very similar thing. The kids would come out in the afternoon and they would be playing dominoes. And at the time, I wasn't really proficient. Well, let's be real, I'm not really proficient now, but I was less proficient then. And so the adults would sit down at the tables and engage in the game, and the kids would be over our shoulders and they'd be directing the game. So we really wouldn't be playing. They'd just be directing us on what to throw down. But the community accessed that joy. And we were there to serve and to provide services for them. It stood out to me that every country that I've gone to, whether it be when I was in a rural city in New Zealand, we were in Kaitaia and I was in Mananui, and it was, the access is very, very limited there. But the amount of fun and community and love that was there, they accessed that. And I think that that's something that I see here in where we are here in the stateside United States in pockets and community, but I think it takes intention. And so I just want to bring that to the space that it's possible. And it doesn't make us bad people. It doesn't make us insensitive people. It doesn't mean we're putting blinders on. It just means that we are accessing a place of restoration so that we can continue to give and be out there doing what we need to do to be that change, to be that positive impact, and to be those healers and educators and advocates and social justice warriors and parents and spouses and siblings for those who are caretakers, that we can continue to do that. All right. So, with that, I leave you. Again, how do you access your joy? What structure do you have in place to carve out fun, to carve out laughter? What do you do? Please share this episode. This is one of those episodes I think at this time is very important to share with our neighbors, our friends, our families, our colleagues, because this is a time where people need to be looking at how they intentionally access that that aspect, that play, that joy in the midst of this chaos so that we can keep going, keep the fight going. All right. And I would be most appreciative if you, for whatever platform you're listening, whether it's Apple, whether it's Google, whether it's Spotify, whether it's YouTube, is to leave a review, because that helps Apple and Spotify and these podcast platforms to serve up this podcast a little bit more. And so this message reaches a little bit more of our audience that we want to reach, that are interested in really getting underneath and getting behind their beliefs, their behaviors, and how the brain works. Okay. And so thank you for your listenership, because I know without the podcast, without the listeners, there is no podcast. Continue on having an amazing week. And listen, until I see you again, stay empowered.